Good evening and welcome to Pakistan Today News from our New York studio. I'm Victoria Lane. We begin with developments in the Middle East, where U.S. Secretary of State Marco Rubio has firmly rejected Iran's conditions regarding the Strait of Hormuz. Speaking in an interview with Fox News, Rubio said Washington will not accept any system that involves payments or permissions to Tehran for maritime passage. He described the strait as an economic nuclear weapon and warned that the United States would not tolerate what he called extortion. Rubio reiterated that Iran will never be allowed to develop nuclear weapons, adding that pressure on Tehran will continue even in the absence of a formal deal. He also suggested that while Iran's negotiating posture appears serious, internal hardliners are obstructing progress, though some factions are seeking economic stability. Meanwhile, reports from the Wall Street Journal indicate that President Donald Trump has not fully dismissed Iran's proposals, but remains skeptical of Tehran's intentions and is particularly dissatisfied with the exclusion of nuclear issues from discussions. Diplomatic consultations are said to be ongoing. Turning now to Russia, Iranian Foreign Minister Abbas Araghchi has said that despite its superpower status, the United States failed to achieve any of its objectives during the recent conflict. Speaking to journalists in Russia, Araghchi stated that discussions around negotiations are now underway and are being reviewed by Tehran. He reaffirmed Iran's commitment to strengthening strategic ties with Moscow and praised Russia's support for diplomacy in a social media message highlighting expanding cooperation. Separately, Iranian Foreign Office spokesperson Esmail Baghai criticized European Union sanctions, calling them hypocritical and accusing the West of targeting civilians rather than addressing human rights concerns. He also described the seizure of Iranian oil tankers in international waters as maritime piracy and said the United States must be held accountable for destabilizing global security. Moving to the United Nations, Russia's envoy Vasily Nebenzia has defended Iran's position on maritime security, saying Tehran has the right to regulate and restrict traffic through the Strait of Hormuz. He accused Western countries of hypocrisy and double standards, arguing that a coastal state under attack may impose navigation limits within its territorial waters for security reasons. Nebenzia also compared Western conduct to piracy and criticized European support for Ukrainian strikes on Russian commercial vessels in the Black Sea, saying unilateral coercive measures are being used to mask unlawful actions. Thank you, Sarah. Staying with global energy developments, a liquefied natural gas tanker managed by Abu Dhabi National Oil Company has reportedly crossed the Strait of Hormuz for the first time since the Iran conflict began. According to Reuters, the vessel operated by ADNOC Logistics and Services was detected off the west coast of India after weeks of no confirmed signal. Maritime tracking data suggests the ship last appeared in the Gulf on March 30th, raising indications it may have transited the strait after a prolonged disruption. If verified, this would mark the first loaded LNG tanker crossing since the conflict began on February 28. In China, President Asif Ali Zardari visited Shaoshan, the birthplace of Mao Zedong, where he paid tribute by laying a floral wreath at the late Chinese leader's statue. According to the presidency media wing, the president was received by senior Chinese officials, including Li Jiang and Zhang Shihui. He also toured the Mao Zedong Memorial Museum and reviewed historical artifacts. President Zardari praised Mao's role in transforming China and emphasized the importance of preserving historical heritage and strengthening people-to-people ties between the two countries. And finally, Prime Minister Shehbaz Sharif has met a high-level European Union trade delegation at the Prime Minister's house. The delegation, comprising senior EU officials and business representatives, was led by the European Commission's Director for International Partnerships in the Asia-Pacific region. The Prime Minister welcomed the delegation and thanked them for participating in the EU-Pakistan Business Forum. He reaffirmed that the European Union is Pakistan's largest trading partner and assured full facilitation for strengthening trade and investment ties. The EU delegation appreciated Pakistan's efforts for regional peace and expressed strong interest in expanding business-to-business cooperation across key sectors. That's all for now. You're watching Pakistan Today News. I'm Victoria Lane.